This book. Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be talking about a recent read, one that was a buddy read with one of my real life friends, Andy, and that is Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Batsarisha. I've definitely butchered that. I do apologise. I've been practicing and I just cannot roll my tongue in the right ways, and yeah, I can't. I'm struggling. I will keep practicing. This was a ride. It was a ride. It's what I've been wanting to read since it came out, actually. And I don't know, I just kept putting it off. You know how things go. Other things kind of get pushed to the surface, and the books that you really wanted to read at the time just kind of drop lower and lower. But my gosh, I'm glad I read this. It was a 5-star read, but I am left disturbed and questioning life and everything, you know? Basically, the premise of this is, if everybody was eating human meat, would you? Translated from the Spanish, Tender is the Flesh is a horror commentary about the natural decline in humanity when animal products become poison, deathly dangerous to us to eat. And so, of course, as radical as the government is and wanting to keep control of populations, and there's so many ulterior motives, I'm sure I'll touch on that later, they decide, yes, we can harvest humans and eat them, but we won't look at them as humans. Oh, no, that would be strange. These are special meat. These are the product, and we shall eat their flesh and we shall be happy as long as we don't think about where that flesh is coming from. Although for some characters in this book and some companies, I think knowing where it's from is part of the thrill. It is horrifying yet thought-provoking and brings forward questions such as, are we all simply sheep following what the new norm is and never really questioning anything for ourselves? For example, our main character Marco's sister. Happens to our morals and our ethics as a people upon the introduction of a new threat to the species. We just become kill, eat, survive. Is the current state we keep our livestock in and the practices we carry out on them fit for purpose or needlessly cruel? So this story follows Marcus, and Marcus felt simultaneously complex yet hollow. Complex because you could clearly see he had this deep-rooted distaste to the way society was falling and basically how we were all legalizing cannibalism and everyone was okay with that. Yet hollow at the same time because he is going through a loss of his child who was a baby when he passed away, the estrangement with his wife who needs her own space but doesn't seem to realize that they're both grieving the loss of their son, an estrangement that's brewing potentially from his sister who just seems so out of touch with the world and very much a sheeple, and the oncoming grief of his father who is suffering with dementia, so grieving the loss of who he was, and of course the eventual passing of that man who was such a big role in his life. Like the only real, true and almost pure connection that he has to the before times, which is called the, I want to say the transition, or it was the transformation, but that was basically before the laws in his country ruled that they could kill and eat humans, basically, before they legalized cannibalism. So with that, he has this shell of a former self kind of quality to him that definitely appears quite hollow, yet you can see his reactions are so fluctuating as he responds either completely emotionally unavailable, or on the other spectrum of that, he is pretty extreme and almost violent in how he reacts to things. There's never any in between. So as a character, I thought Marcus was a very interesting one to follow and to be in his headspace, especially when it comes to some of the decisions he makes throughout the stories, both for himself and others. And when you add in the fact that he's quite high up in what is called a processing plant, which is where they collect and slaughter heads, it adds much more depth to the story. And again, the questions that I mentioned at the beginning, it brings that to light continuously. On the topic of human meat, I found it so fascinating how they distinguished what they're eating from humans eating them, and further still the distinction between us and the degenerates who were the scavengers that sort of propped up around plants hoping for scraps of meat to eat, and the way they look down on these people who are clearly just trying to survive, albeit not in the most prim and proper way that society was following, yet they were literally doing the same thing that the degenerates, the scavengers, were doing, just more with a polish to it and a nice little bow, a nice little packaging tied on top. So the hypocrisy in that was absolutely fascinating. I was endlessly enthralled by the clever use of terminology to continuously dehumanize what they were doing, what they were eating, such as, you know, organizations like the processing plants referring to the people that they were eating as heads or products or special meat, and even sticking to the basics of the female, the male. I honestly felt quite sick when they were referring to them like that. It just felt so wrong when they were doing so very obviously human things, you know. And to look at them in my mind's eye, they must have been a mirror image. It was crazy to me. Yet in the same hypocritical breath, we had, you know, terms such as she and her, and a lot of the times I find like people referring to meat of today as it, you know, you've got that distinction, think of it as you will. Yet when they kept referring to things as she, her, you know, those sort of pronouns, it made it all still feel strangely human, and it was almost as if society couldn't quite detach the fact of what they were eating with people, you know. Otherwise I feel like they wouldn't have referred to them via she, her, he, him, pronouns of that nature. Am I thinking too much into that? Like, it just really tickled my brain, and I had to try and get that thought out there. Whether it makes sense or not is a complete different story. Coming back to the story in particular, I can't say that I ever really predicted what the story was going to do, and definitely what was going to happen by the end. But I must say, I sat there in disbelief at the end. I felt like I was played for the story. I literally shouted, "What the fuck?" I sat there in silence. I forgot how to breathe a little bit. I had to read over the last couple of pages a couple of times because I couldn't conceptualize how we got there. From everything that I felt we learned, we just took a complete spin on its head, and nothing was as it seems. I had theories of what this story could possibly be, and you know, the themes, the conversations that this brought up, especially between me and my friend that was reading this, was amazing. But I can't say purely story wise, that I could ever really truly guess where it would go, and that was unsettling but amazing. What this author attempted to do with this very debased book was pulled off absolutely exquisitely. The themes and commentary through the eyes of Marcos were disturbing yet thought-provoking, and I couldn't help but wondering, would I actually eat human meat if the government was saying that we had to, and that it was socially okay to do so? Would you? Let me know. Also, let me know if you've read Tender is the Flesh and what you thought about it. You know, I had a smashing time reading this. I was so uncomfortable. It made me look inwards into myself to kind of question some of the things that are done now, but with animals, and think about that a little bit more deeper in relation to if the roles were turned in a way and it was humans being done to what is being done to animals. It was fascinating. Anyway, that is it for this review. Thanks for watching, and I shall catch you in another one soon. Bye.